Hello, and thank you for joining me today to talk about the U.S.-Mexico border, its security, and what kind of future for immigration, trade, and diplomacy we would like to see. While some people argue for strengthening the border, I'm here to advocate that we keep the status quo uh, to promote economic stability, enhance geopolitical stability, and the status quo reflects our American values that benefit both nations. So first, let's talk about critical economic implications of a stable U.S.-Mexican border. In 2022, the GDP for the United States was north of $25 trillion, and trade with Mexico alone was roughly $855 billion, which is a substantial amount, proving that Mexico isn't just our neighbor to the south, it's one of our top trading partners, especially when it comes to textiles, automotive parts, petroleum, electronics, and many other things. Some people might argue that Mexico only contributes a small percentage of our GDP. However, trade with Mexico serves an essential purpose. It acts as a stabilizing force. If we were going to tighten our border, it would drive up costs for goods, such as I just mentioned, and goods that the U.S. sources from other countries like China. Um, those come in through Mexico because of the tariffs that the United States currently has on Chinese imports, I guess. Um, and those goods being shipped through Mexico actually helps keep things cheaper. So every restriction that we place on the border with Mexico actually turns the goods at the register to make them more expensive for American families. So if you would like to continue to pay fair prices, then maintaining a more open border with Mexico is going to be the solution. The second crucial reason for preserving the border is as it pertains to our workforce. The fact is that many jobs in agriculture, construction, and hospitality rely heavily on immigrant jobs because those are positions that Americans are not willing to work for low wages. Those businesses, they can't afford to pay high wages and keep their doors open. So Americans, or immigrants rather, are willing to take those low-paying jobs to work as they hopefully earn money and are able to apply for citizenship. Additionally, as they earn those wages, they spend those wages here on rent, groceries, and other goods, which support local economies and small businesses. And furthermore, the workers also, when they spend the money, it goes towards taxes. You know, they have to pay sales tax and everything. So while they may not directly receive the benefit from those social services, they still pay into those institutions, which help keep costs low for Americans and also help keep the line short. My opponent claims that immigrants, both documented and undocumented, threaten American jobs, but as I've just gone over, and studies also show that these roles would Americans are not willing to fill these roles, and that by increasing the border, it would just lead to job shortages rather than labor shortages rather than Americans stepping in and taking over those roles. And labor shortages means producers can't supply as much. There's an equal demand, and prices skyrocket. So that's how that works out. Let's next turn to geopolitics. The U.S.-Mexico relationship is essential for maintaining global economic stability, especially since as tensions with China grow, the U.S. has historically relied on China for cheap labor, especially when it comes to manufacturing. But if tensions with China continue to rise, then we're going to see less manufacturing coming from China, and maintaining an open border with Mexico is really essential there because a lot of those manufacturing jobs can move to Mexico because the labor is still cheap there, and we'll be able to maintain lower prices. Moreover, while there are real concerns uh, about drug and human trafficking, a stronger border is not necessarily the solution there. Increasing resources to target traffickers is not always a solution because studies have shown that when securities go up, traffickers, they just figure out a way to get through it. They almost always maintain like a 90% success rate when going through like official border crossings, and so increasing security at the border is not going to be the best way to go about that. Instead, we should strengthen the border by increasing the training for the staff that's already at the border, and then also investing into new technologies to scan those vehicles coming through. As my opponent pointed out, that there's even a 10-minute delay in wait times at the border can cost $26 million in cargo across the border every month. So increasing security at the border would only lead to a greater wait time, contributing to much more loss in revenues. If we strengthen the border securities, we would only see an increase in costs. Lastly, the U.S.-Mexico border is not just a line on a map. As you know, families cross the border every day. It's a place where two nations meet, and for many immigrants, crossing the border represents hope and opportunity. Strengthening the border would put them at a greater risk of trafficking and exploitation, as smugglers take advantage of vulnerable people seeking a better life, having to wait extra time at the border. An open, more humane border recognizes that America's strength lies not only in its economic power, but also in its values, and treating immigrants with compassion and keeping families together, while welcoming those who contribute to our society is only good things. So, to conclude, keeping the U.S.-Mexico border as it is supports our economy, it respects geopolitical needs, and it honors our humanitarian commitments. Closing off or strengthening the border would only result in increasing consumer prices, a restricted labor market, and an increased risk for those who are seeking a new start. An open, well-managed border is not a weakness, it's just a strength. It allows us to uphold American values of freedom, opportunity, and economic prosperity.